This series contains adult language and includes content that some listeners may find disturbing. Listener discretion is strongly advised. From Murder Creek Media, this is Skeptical. I'm your host, Neeli Faulkner. This is Season 1, Episode 10. If you're just now tuning into Skeptical, this is one story told week by week. So if you haven't listened to our episodes in sequential order, go back to Episode 1 and start from the beginning. Last week on Skeptical.
And all it was lies. It wasn't, all was a bunch of bullshit. We were scared, trying to get out of trouble. And whatever they told us is what we said, pretty much the way it went down.
Did you know that Timothy Marshall gave a statement back to the GIP back in 2012, basically saying the exact same thing he told me?
Are you kidding me? I mean, did they straight up come out and ask you to tell a story that you told? Or, I mean, were you threatened? Or, you get what I'm saying? Like, why did you agree to tell a story that wasn't true?
Because we was just young and didn't know no better, and they, I don't know, it's so hard to explain. They, I don't know, it's kind of like they just planted seeds in our head and they just kind of go with it. You know what I mean?
It wasn't long ago that I finally found a quiet moment to sit on my couch and watch a show on television. It sounds a little pretentious, I know, but honestly, I don't watch a lot of TV. My days are usually consumed with work, crafting some type of content like you're listening to now, or following the threads of an investigation, and I rarely come across something that holds my attention long enough for me to think it's more interesting than that. I think, in a sense, we're all like that now. We consume content at lightning speed, swiping from one video to the next in just seconds, an average of 3 seconds if you're curious. Our attention spans certainly aren't what they used to be. But this case was different. It caught my attention and held it, gripping me for literally years. Even as I went about my daily life, there was never a day that I didn't think about Daniel, or Tony, or even Mike. My mind would drift back to them, and I'd find myself researching, poring over old newspaper articles, combing through every thread of information I could find. The faint scratch of pen on paper as I took notes, the soft glow of my computer screen late at night, the quiet thrill of finding a new lead, it all became a ritual. It became almost an obsession. But can you blame me? Every new piece of information felt like I was stepping closer to the truth. And that kind of truth isn't just seen, it's felt. It lingers in the silence of an empty courtroom or the worn pages of a case file. It hides in the pause before someone answers your question, their breath catching as if deciding whether to tell you the real story. You'd think I would have grown tired of it, especially considering the mountain of evidence I had already collected suggesting Daniel's innocence. To unearth one witness recantation is rare, almost unheard of, and yet I found three affidavits, each one a stunning admission of false testimony. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that there were more. And boy, was I right. This case has taken me down winding roads, both literal and metaphorical. I found myself parked outside unassuming homes, heart racing as I prepared to knock on the door. I've walked through forgotten archives, the air thick with the scent of old paper and dust, uncovering pieces of a puzzle that no one seemed willing to solve. But nothing prepared me for what I found when I finally reached Timothy Marshall. The thing about investigations like this is that the truth is never just lying out in the open. It's hidden beneath layers of fear, manipulation, and forgotten memories. It takes persistence to peel back those layers. And that's what I had to do when I talked to Timothy. His story wasn't just another layer. It was a whole new dimension to the case. When I spoke to him, his story confirmed my suspicion that this case was bigger than I imagined. He had mentioned 2 other men during this conversation, Butch Gibbs and Jerry Wayne Wilson, who'd been locked up with him in the Chilton County Jail when investigators and Bobby Casper approached him about the murder of Mike Bernas. Timothy claimed that, like him, Butch and Jerry Wayne knew nothing about the murder, but he also alleged that didn't matter to investigators. He said the story he told wasn't his own. It was one he was handed. I had to know if Butch and Jerry Wayne's experiences mirrored Timothy's. Were they also pulled into a narrative crafted by someone else? But reaching out to Butch and Jerry Wayne wasn't easy. Tracking people down in this line of work rarely is, but it was even harder with them. I spent countless hours chasing leads that turned out to be dead ends, but eventually, my friend Kim managed to connect with both of them. Here's part of the conversation between us regarding Butch, the first of the two she was able to reach.
Okay, you there?
Yeah.
All right, what do you say?
I thought I had put the money on the thing wrong, so I wasn't even worried about my recorder because I'm going to have to put money on my card to do it the way I thought I was going to have to. But he said he figured out how to do it. Anyways, he called. He said that Bobby Casper had him moved from Chilton County over to Coosa County. He didn't even have any charges in Coosa County, and that she would come and see him every single day. That somehow he got out of Coosa County, they charged him with escape, and that's what Bobby Gentry held over his head. When they finally caught up with him, she acted like she was mad at him and said, well, now this is what you're going to have to do. And I said, so have you ever heard Tony and Daniel talk to each other? He said, I've never even been around them together. I said, so what about, there was something about you overheard Tony talking. He said, he said, I'm willing to talk to whoever it takes to set the record straight and tell them exactly what it was, how it was, and how it really happened. And he said that Bobby Gentry would come and pull him out from over there in Coosa County every day, and they would just sit in this little room for hours together. He said, Bobby Gentry is no joke. I said, I already could tell you that myself. She spent a whole lot more time with Butch Gibbs than she did any of them.
So did you ask him? Because Butch Gibbs is supposedly the one that bought the gun from Daniel. Hold on.
No, that's Butch Browder.
Browder. Okay. So hold on. I'm getting them confused then. Butch Gibbs is the one that said he had seen heard the two of them talking in jail. And that they were hollering back and forth at each other. Yes,
and he also said something about he had overheard Tony talking about the murder, or Tony was talking to him about the murder or something.
Right. Okay, yeah. Now I'm getting it. So, so this is another person giving the exact same story as all the others.
Yes.
I'm sorry, but there's no coincidence to that. There has to be some.
He said that Bobby helped him out a whole lot. I don't know if she set it up to where he could be charged, because he seems like he kind of thinks that she arranged for that escape charge or something. I don't know. I didn't talk to him in depth about it, but from what I was getting, she held that escape charge over his head. He was not even supposed to be in Coosa County. He said he was over there for 11 months and didn't even have a charge in Coosa County. And I said, for this right here, for testifying in the Bernas murder trial? He said, yes. And then he got some kind of escape charge, and that whenever he got back, that Bobby acted like she was really mad at him and said, now you're going to have to do this and this and this.
Butch's conversation with Kim was full of strong allegations against Bobby. To say she somehow finagled a falsified charge against him was an oddly familiar statement, much like what Daniel and his friends had claimed happened to him regarding the altered firearm. While this makes for an interesting story, how was Bobby able to have Butch charged? After all, she's only a private investigator, not a law enforcement officer. I didn't know the answer to this or if it was even true, but I kept it in the back of my mind as I moved forward. Kim tried to arrange a follow-up call with Butch, but we lost contact when he was transferred to another facility. That's how these things go sometimes, but I wasn't giving up. If Butch's story was true, I needed to know if Jerry Wayne's would corroborate it. So Kim tracked down Jerry Wayne next, and his story was just as unsettling.
This is Kimberly. It's December the 21st, 2018, 12:15, and I'm here with Jerry Wayne Wilson discussing his part in the investigation of Mike Bernas' murder. Okay. Yes, sir. What happened? Yes, as Kimberly stated, my name is Jerry Wayne Wilson. I can vaguely remember a male and female officer coming to my cell when I was incarcerated at Chilton County Jail. I was under a city case, and the investigators were offering me to cut in my time if I would say I heard things going on in the cell, a couple cells from me. There's a couple other guys that were in the cell with me, and I think they had also spoken with them. But I didn't think anything more of it, and it was maybe, I don't know how long after that, I ended up in court in Coosa County, Rockford, and they were wanting me to testify and saying, give statements, and say these things and, that thing. And I never did go to court over there because I wouldn't say these things. But I would do anything I can, in helping, the matter here. I feel bad for Tony, and I feel bad for the other guy's family, too. But, I can't, like I say, I think there's been some injustice done here, and something needs to be done about it. And that's all I can say.
Okay, do you remember what they were trying to get you to say?
Yes, they were just, trying to get me to, say that I heard, Tony had committed murder, that he was discussing his murder with, guys in the cell next door. But, it's real, noisy in the cells, that we're in up there, so it's kind of hard to hear anything. So I never heard anybody discussing anything like that, and I don't see how anybody could have heard anybody discussing anything like that. So I really don't know.
Yeah, but they just was.
Yeah, they just insisted. They came with me, just offering. They were real continuous about the offering, help with my city charges and stuff like that.
Okay, I'm gonna need you to write that down.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I sure will. I sure will. Anything else I can do, I'd be more than glad to do that also.
Jerry made good on his promise to Kim because on December 21st, 2018, he signed a notarized affidavit detailing the same things you just heard him say. In September of the following year, my investigation into the case came to a halt for several months as I dealt with an emergency medical situation for my daughter who had contracted an extremely rare condition known as acute flaccid myelitis, or AFM. At the time, less than 400 people in the entire world had ever been diagnosed with it, and my life was turned upside down as I scrambled to find the resources to help her. I spent the next 5 months in multiple hospitals, and my time to dedicate to the case grew thin, but not non-existent. If I had somehow morphed into Sherlock Holmes, Kim had certainly become my Watson. She continued tracking down informants and keeping me in the loop as she could. In November of 2019, Kim had tracked down William Price, and she sent me a message to let me know. You've heard his name in previous episodes, so he's probably pretty familiar to you too.
So when you mentioned on our last phone call that you had that an investigator came to see you, a younger white
Miss Bobby.
Miss
Bobby.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So how did Bobby present herself when she came to talk to you?
She told me that she was an investigator and that the family hired her to see who killed their son.
Uh-huh. So did Bobby help you to get out of jail in any way?
My uncle signed my bond.
Your uncle signed your bond?
Yes, ma'am.
So did Bobby speak to you after you got out of jail?
Yes, ma'am.
So why did Bobby come and speak to you while you were in jail?
She wants to get my side of the story.
This conversation with William was all over the place. At one point, he told me he knew where the murder weapons were, but he wouldn't elaborate over the phone. He wanted me to come visit him in jail so that he could give me some more information. But I never did, obviously, due to being in the hospital. But I did continue to speak to him several more times, and each call after that was a little less chaotic than the one before him. And finally, after all those calls, he said exactly what I had expected him to say all along.
Okay, so I want to ask you about, remember we talked about like your statement to police?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I want to ask you specifically why your statement changed from the first statement you made to the other statements that you made. Because I'm curious, you had mentioned at the end of our first phone call, you talked about Bobby Casper. Do you remember that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so did Bobby come to see you after you gave your first statement?
Yes, ma'am.
I asked William this because in his initial statement to police, he never mentions Daniel. In that interview, he's being asked about the gun that was eventually connected to Daniel. Remember the altered firearm I talked about a few episodes ago? Yeah, that one. William is being asked about this gun and when he bought it. Again, he never mentions Daniel, and he also claims to have bought the gun on a different day that Mike Bernos was killed. But after Bobby comes to see him, his story changes. In his new story, as evidenced by his documented witness statements, he claims he bought the gun from Daniel on the same night Mike Bernos was killed.
Can you tell me about that visit, like how that went?
Basically, it's like she was trying to put words in my head.
How did she identify herself?
She told me that the family had hired an investigator like that.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to find who killed their son. And she told me she here to help find who killed Miss Brown like that.
Mm-hmm.
And he kept doing things for me, you know what I'm saying?
Like, when you say that, what do you mean, though?
I had got in trouble one time, and she came and got me out of jail and then all this and that and told me that the case would get dropped, which it did,
Mm-hmm. She told you that your pending case, that when you were in jail, when she came to see you, she told you that charge would be dropped?
Yes, ma'am.
Was that in 1995?
Yes, ma'am.
So did she give you a story and ask you to say that story, or did she take what you said and wrote it that way?
It's like she had two stories, mixed together.
Mhm. Did she specifically ask you to say that this is the story that happened?
Basically, yes, ma'am.
So that would be why the statement had changed. Is that what you're saying?
Ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So when Bobby talked to you, was anybody else there with you?
It was just me and her.
Just you? Was it at the jail?
Yes, ma'am.
I guess it was in Clanton, at the Clanton jail?
Yes, ma'am, shooting time.
Yeah. And she was the only one that ever came and talked to you, or did other people come and talk to you before the trial?
Well, before she came, the FBI came and talked to me.
You mean the ABI?
ABI, yes, ma'am. They came and tried to scare me or whatever they did.
What did they say to you when they came and talked to you? Do you remember?
It's been so long, but they took me down to the basement or the city of Clanton police department.
Mm-hmm.
And I was young, you know what I'm saying? They trying to threaten me and all this and that.
Mm-hmm. So you just said what you thought they wanted you to say? Is that what you're telling me?
Yes, ma'am.
Did they ask you to say anything specific, or they just took your statement?
They just were trying to put words in my mouth.
Mm-hmm. Did you know anything about what had happened when they approached you?
No, ma'am. I was just lost. When they came and got me, I was at McDonald's eating, me and my girlfriend, my brother and his girlfriend. And they surrounded McDonald's and came and got me and said, "You are arrested for murder." I said, "Murder?" They take me in jail. And a couple weeks later, my uncle came sign my bond. And before he came, Miss Bobby came. Where the feds, with ABA or whatever it is, they came. And then Miss Bobby came. And then my uncle came sign my bond. And then me and Miss Bobby came like best friends.
So when you say like best friends, was she like coming and picking you up, or like how was that relationship?
Yeah, she would come get me and nobody go out to eat or something, and she just tell me this and that.
Would she pay for your stuff?
Yes, ma'am. So I just went along with it.
Mhm. How long did that go on?
For a long time, and then when they I guess found Tony guilty or whatnot, the attorney general told me if I ever need anything to call him.
If I'm being honest, I wasn't sure what to make of my conversations with William. At times I felt like he was telling me what I wanted to hear. Sometimes it felt like he was lying, but other times I think a bit of the truth snuck in there. But was he lying if he told me the same story about Bobby as the other witnesses had? I mean, let's really think about this. What were the chances that this many witnesses would tell me extremely similar stories over 25 years after the fact? I couldn't overlook what would have to be one hell of a coincidence if it wasn't a true story. It wasn't just the stories about Bobby, but also the other investigators that concerned me. I still couldn't wrap my head around how Bobby would have as much power as she did to get charges dropped. I did look into the claims of charges being null prost and whatnot and found them to be mostly true. I couldn't find where William had ever been charged with murder though, but he had been charged with possession around the time he claims this happened. Although Daniel and Tony were tried separately, I began treating the two cases the same. I reached out to witnesses from both trials and found a witness that had testified at Daniel's trial but not Tony's. This witness asked to remain anonymous, so I'll refer to him as Mr. B. Mr. B's testimony in Daniel's trial seemed critical to me because it helped to place Daniel and Tony together the day of the murder, and jurors were aware that Tony had already been convicted of Mike's murder prior to Daniel's trial. In his statement and eventual testimony, Mr. B claimed he had seen Daniel and Tony together at his home in Rockford, just a few miles from where Mike Bernas lived. He stated Tony drove to Mr. B's house, and Mr. B met him at the car in the driveway. Inside, he claims to have seen Tony in the driver's seat and Daniel in the passenger seat.
I wanted to talk to you because you had written a witness statement back at the time of the murder of Michael Bernas, and I just wanted to ask you about your statement. Is that okay?
Yes, my statement is that me and Tony he stayed at my house, and that's the only thing I said. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. Let me see what you got with the statements. What did they put on the statement? If I didn't write anything, they took a verbal statement from me.
Okay. When you say they, do you mean the Alabama Bureau of Investigation?
Well, yeah, they harassed me for a long time, and yeah, I'd say they. And then I went to Rockford. They flew me in from Tennessee because I was living in Tennessee at the time. The ABA flew me in from Tennessee.
Right. When you say they harassed you, do you mean were they calling you, coming by? How did that come about?
No, they arrested me.
On what grounds?
They charged me with crazy shit. I don't know what was going on. They tried to accuse me of being involved with the murder case, and for a minute there, I was sort of like, trying to stay away from them. And I had moved to Tennessee, and Tony's mother and them gave him my address, and the FBI, and Tennessee Police Department and the ABI kicked my door in Tennessee and arrested me.
For your involvement in this, or just on something unrelated?
They accused me of, I was accused of involvement in it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It was not true.
I did want to ask you, when you said that they were trying to get information out of you, and that they were charging with all kind of crazy things, did they ever try to, did you feel intimidated, or like they were trying to coerce you?
I feel intimidated all the time. I mean, when you arrest someone in Tennessee at your home and fly them back in a private jet and land in a cornfield in Rockford, I didn't know anything. I was scared. I was scared shitless.
Mm-hmm.
They kept telling me I was gonna do life in prison. They kept threatening me with shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you going to prison for life and all that stuff. And we heard you did this. We heard you did that. There was so many rumors they heard. People were saying it wasn't none of it true.
Right. So in your statement that you gave, or your testimony that you gave at trial, you said they asked you if you had seen Daniel Blan with Tony Quince the night of the murder. In your statement, you said they had come to your house and you saw him in the vehicle. Do you remember saying that?
That's a lie. I did not say that he came to my house the night of no murder. That is not the truth.
Is that what they were trying to get you to say?
Daniel Blan, it was Bernard's stepson, right?
Bernas, yeah, he was his adoptive son, but yeah, everybody just referred to him as the stepson. But they weren't really of any blood relation. But he had adopted Daniel.
Yeah, but that is not the truth. He did not come to my house. No, Tony was living with me at the time. Him and his mom had a disagreement, and Tony had moved in with me. So he stayed at my house for a number of the times. Anytime he come out and we drank, he didn't go home. He had a room at my house.
And so when they arrested you for that, I'm just going to assume that the charges were just dropped later. I mean, did you spend a significant amount of time in jail or anything?
I don't know what they call it. They took me They came to my house. They put me in cuffs. They took me down to Tennessee before a judge, and the judge allowed them some kind of possession to take me back to Alabama. I don't know how the hell that went, what the hell they call that, but I've never seen nothing like it in my life. They didn't put me in no jail cell. They brought me back to Alabama. They took me up to Rockford. They took me into this courthouse, and they asked me all these kind of questions, Then they put me in a motel overnight, and then they bought me a bus ticket back to Tennessee. I mean, they was pressuring me really, really bad and asking me all kind of questions, twisted questions and stuff, and asking me, did I know the guy and stuff like that. And I'm like, you know, I gave the answers best of my ability, but I don't know a lot of the questions they asked was like crazy questions. No murder weapon, no evidence, just railroaded.
Yeah, and it's.
I mean, that's straight Alabama. I call it Alabama justice. I don't mean to be rude. I don't mean to be nasty. I'm just being straight up honest. It's called Alabama justice to us. The thing is this: the family wanted somebody to pay for it, and his family, from my understanding, Bernard's family had money, and they put up $100,000 reward for the conviction, information leading to the conviction. The investigators came to me and asked me, did I know anything that happened? They told me if I wanted the $100,000, all I had to do is say that blanket, 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 blank. You know what I'm saying?
No, I understand what you're saying.
They wanted to convict somebody because they have no murder weapon. They had nothing. They had no eyewitnesses. They had no fingerprints. They had zero. But I know for a fact that both guys was convicted and got life without the possibility of parole, and I know for a fact Tony's innocent.
If Mr. B's story sounds a bit outlandish to you, what would you say if I told you that inside case files I obtained from Daniel's former attorneys, there's an extradition order to get Mr. B from his home in Tennessee, just as he claimed? I don't know how much his story has been embellished, but I know one thing for sure. He didn't lie about being brought to Alabama from Tennessee. So what else was he telling the truth about? Now that I had this information, I knew I couldn't just sit on it. The more I uncovered, the more I realized the depth of what I was dealing with. I couldn't stand idly by while these allegations of manipulation and coercion sat in my files. I had to take action. I started reaching out to attorneys, sharing what I had found and hoping someone would see the importance of reopening this case. But as much as I tried, very few seemed interested in helping. Some were polite but dismissive, while others simply didn't respond at all. It was disheartening, to say the least. I didn't know where else to turn, and I was beginning to feel the weight of the case pressing down on me. But then, in an odd twist of fate, something happened. Someone came forward with the ability to shine a much bigger spotlight on Daniel's case, one that my little podcast couldn't possibly compete with.
We have EJI, which everybody screams they're overwhelmed. We can't.
They are overwhelmed.
Right. Yeah, can you imagine all the freaking cases and stuff, people that are innocent that's in there behind stuff just like this? Down here in little town, Coosa County and Chilton County, and where they do whatever they want to. The judges are all friends and plays golf with all the lawyers and all of that. And
yeah, and defense
they
attorneys
hang out together on the weekends
friends with prosecutors on Facebook.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that when the state of Alabama stepped in and took over, they kind of intimidated, everybody. They didn't want to go against them. But this is crazy. I know we know what we know, and somebody needs to do something about the shit. I'm aggravated at this point. I'm pissed, aggravated. I know you've been. I know, yeah, we all are, but daggum, why won't nobody? If somebody in the daggum Attorney General's office somewhere, somebody had to have took their oath seriously about justice and being fair or something, somewhere, somebody. I just don't know. Maybe. Well, it's Alabama.
I don't know if the EJI could have done anything to help Daniel, but there was someone else that could. Sometimes, when the road feels like a dead end, help arrives from the most unexpected places. It was a moment of vindication, a reminder that even when the system seems impenetrable, persistence pays off. Next week on Skeptical.
Hi, Neeli. It's Alex calling from Reasonable Data. Sorry it's taking so long to get to your emails, but I wanted to ask you a quick question. If you can give me a call back anytime, I'd really appreciate it. Thanks so much. Talk to you soon.
Did you do that?
I remember going to his house, right? Whether I asked him that or not, I can't tell you the truth.
So it probably did happen.
Then it probably, I ain't saying it didn't. I'm not going to tell you it didn't. I remember going to his apartment.
He said that also that Todd sometimes would also get you to move cocaine for him. They'd never say that you did it, but, you know, kind of one of those things, if you hang around a barbershop long enough, you're going to get a haircut.
Skeptical is a production of Murder Creek Media. It's created, written, and narrated by me. Our associate producers are Emily Christie, Tony Forbes, Camry Council, Lauren Powell, and Chantrice Martin. Special thanks to Bailey Dollar and Clarissa Rambo. You can find out more about us and our work by visiting murdercreekmedia.com. If you're hungry for more, consider joining our premium subscription on Spotify. Unlock exclusive access to unaired content, including extended audio interviews and host commentary, offering a deeper dive into the cases that grip your curiosity. You can also join the conversation online by searching our social handle, SkepticalPod. If you like this episode, we'd love to hear from you. Leaving a review helps us grow and improve, making sure we can continue to bring you the content you crave. Every rating, comment, and share helps others discover our show. Remember, every voice matters in the pursuit of justice. Keep questioning, keep advocating, and together we can make a difference.